answers. Take a look at group 1 and you'll notice some strange contradictions. For instance, here we see that this is a heated discussion and then she believed. Well, that's a little strange, right? Because if it's a discussion, then she's doing more than believing. She's like, arguing, right? And you get something else here too, where you have a direct quote here after a verb like observe. Well, if they came out and said it, they did more than observe, right? So this is really a distinction between public and private. Take a look at this next group, and you'll see some other clashes. Here we see it's well known, but here we see discovered. Well, if it's well known, then they didn't really discover it, did they? You see another example here between claim and everybody knows. Well, that's a bit strange, isn't it? And here we see a study that is innovative but confirmed. Well, if the study was just confirming it, then it really wasn't that innovative, now was it? It's a little, well, these examples here are all kind of obvious and non-obvious clashes, right? And students often notice these. What's a little trickier are these things. Tapa theorized. Well, Tapa's a journalist. She works for Time magazine, right? She didn't really theorize this. And same thing with Hames. Hames is, a professor of evolutionary psychology, but it's not like he's the first person to talk about this. So, this is also kind of about primary and secondary sources. See that module for more. By process of elimination, our last group is about factive and non-factive stuff, right? For instance, if it's a hoax, then they didn't find that, did they? Right? Or take a look at this clash. Well, which one is it? Did they prove that or did they claim that? The key here is always to be consistent in your approach. Let's look at some other examples of this here. All right, well, Professor Higgins believed that a ghost was living in his office. Well, he sounds like he's crazy, right? He realized that a ghost was living in his office? This sounds a little strange. This sentence implies that the ghost was really there. I mean, is it correct? Yeah, it's grammatically correct. But, when would someone actually say something like this? Well, you hear this in ghost stories, A good example of this is this TV show Ghost Hunters. If you've never seen it, it's amazing. They find ghosts every week. How do they do it? When they talk about their work, though, they use factive language, right? Well, we noticed, and then we detected, and we observed, and why do they use factive language? Because it makes it sound, fact like it's really happening, even if maybe it's not. Here's another example of reporting verbs in use. Well, they discovered it. Why would this maybe irritate Sedaris? Well, this is about obvious and non-obvious, right? If it's in the phone book, then you didn't discover it. There's David Sedaris. Finally, we can see really, I think, the best example of how to use reporting verbs to good effect. If you look at this passage, you will see that these writers are here to disagree with Kanazawa. This is a critique of him. But notice how they use factive and non-factive reporting verbs to set this up, right? Yeah, we see things like, well, Kanazawa proposes, right? It's Kanazawa's theory, right? Kanazawa claims, right? These are arguments, right? You'll notice that here he claims, right? These examples are all non-factive, except for one thing he finds, but then when they show that, then it goes, it goes away. Look then at how they talk about their own ideas. We show. All right? This is a classic thing you see in argumentation. Politicians are the master of this, right? When anything the opponent says, they say, they think, but we know, we understand. Right? That sort of framing of ideas can create a subtle but powerful implication for readers or for listeners.